Hi, my name is Tammy Melchien. I'm one of the campus pastors here at Community. And in this video, we're going to be talking about this small group mission resource and how you could lead your group through this as you begin talking about what it means to live on mission together. I would probably start with this resource right at the top where it talks about our mission statement, helping people find their way back to God. And you can ask your group, who is it, if there was one person that you could see find their way back to God, who would it be? It gives you an opportunity to start talking about people outside of your group, outside of people that have already found their way back to God, and who would you like to reach? So you can talk about that for a little bit and then share with them, one of our dreams for this next year at Community is that every person would have a missional story to tell. A story about how they are reaching people who are far from God and helping restore God's dreams for this world and reproducing that mission in others. And what we want to do in our small groups is help one another discover and live out that missional story. Another question you might ask has to do with the restore piece of that mission. You might ask them, what place or what cause or issue of justice or compassion in this world or in your community do you feel most passionate about? What makes you lie awake at night? What are you most angry about? I mean, whatever it might be, just sharing stories of maybe a particular place, a particular cause that you feel passionate about. So those first two questions, just who is it that you would like to see find their way back to God? What place or what cause or what issue do you feel passionate about? Just helps our groups start thinking missionally, start thinking outside of what is happening in the group to the world and to our community beyond. After that, something you might do is you might consider sharing a passage from the Bible. It's a passage that we really are basing this word bless on. It's found in Genesis, the first 3 verses, and in that passage, God is sending Abraham out. And as he sends him out, he tells them, I have blessed you to be a blessing to others. And in the same way, we believe that God is sending us, each and every one of us, sending us out to particular people or a particular place. And he's sending us there so that we can be a blessing. We too have been blessed, and God wants us to take that blessing and being a blessing to others. So you might talk about that passage a little bit with your group, but then you can get to the part on the covenant here where we actually see this missional practice of bless. Now, what these missional practices are is there's just 5 simple practices that will help us begin to live on mission. 5 practices that will help us be a blessing to others. Now, in another video, we're going to unpack those 5 practices a little bit more, so I won't go over them in depth. But at this point in your group, I would just talk about those 5 different practices. Talk about what they are, maybe share some examples from your own life as you're beginning to live out those examples. One of the things we would love to have our groups do is at the beginning of each group to sit down after you've checked in with each other to ask the question, well, who have you blessed this week? Who is it that you have prayed for, or maybe you had a meal with, or who did you have a chance to share your story with? Just for the group to share those stories with one another as a way to hold each other accountable, but also just as a way to encourage each other as we try to live out the mission of Jesus. So after you've had a chance to talk through the B.L.E.S.S acronym and unpack each one of those a little bit, I would go next to this section, Types of Small Group on Mission. See, one of the things that we think we can do in small groups is not only just encourage each other in missional practices, but band together to be on mission together. And we're encouraging groups to talk through what could be a mission that the group together could take on. Maybe it would be a single mom that lives down the street that your small group can come alongside of and maybe help her out with things, whether that's yard work or whether that's helping watch her kids or whatever it might be. Other groups, my group, we've adopted a refugee family through World Relief. And one of the things we're doing is just building a relationship with that family, teaching them how to live here in our community, basic things like going to the grocery store, riding public transportation, that type of stuff. There are literally probably a million different missions that your group could take on together. So spend some time talking about what those could be. It might take weeks, several weeks for you to talk through that and determine that. But begin in this first session to talk about what are some things people would feel passionate about doing together. Now, some groups might end up deciding to become a group of multiple missions, where you're not necessarily doing one thing altogether, but each one of you is living out a mission somewhere, and part of the time in your group, you're going to come back together and you're going to share about that with each other, and you're going to encourage one another. So in this next section, you're just going to talk about whether we're going to be a one mission group and begin to talk about what that could be, or eventually maybe you might decide, well, we're going to be multiple missions. In this initial meeting, you probably won't have time to nail that all down and know exactly what your mission is going to be. So at some point, I would just go ahead and say, okay, well, let's keep talking about that. But then jump down to the bottom here, the group dynamics. And you can talk about some of the basics of your small group, about how important confidentiality is, about how you'd really love to see everyone participate. And also just the concept of the empty chair, that we always want this to be a group where another person is welcome to join us. You could talk through the leadership stuff on the bottom. Hopefully they'll probably know that you're the leader, but maybe you can talk to them for the first time here about wanting someone to step up to be an apprentice if you don't already have one. So I would just wrap up this small group mission guide by talking about some of those basics of small group, and then you're well on your way to figuring out what your small group mission is. Well, hopefully that'll be helpful to you as you go through this small group mission statement with your group for the first time. And check out the other training videos that we have as we continue to try to help one another grow and learn to live out this mission of helping people find their way back to God.